God can use whatever he needs to use to draw people to him. I think sometimes we're inclined to believe that, well, here's how God works, and here's how God does this type of thing or that type of thing. But we need to recall God, he can work in all kinds of interesting ways. He's very, very creative. He's not confined. He's not confined to any of these little boxes sometimes that we like to try to put him in. I'll give you an example. Peter Hitchens, he's a journalist, very highly educated man. Some of you maybe know the name Christopher Hitchens. That's Peter's a little more famous brother. Well, Peter was raised in a Christian home, but he rejected Christianity. In fact, like Christopher, his brother, he completely rejected God. In his teen years and his early adult years, Peter considered himself to be an atheist. Like, I don't believe in this God nonsense. Later in his life, though, Peter came back to faith in Christ. He writes about this in a book that he authored that's titled The Rage Against God. Interesting book. I recommend it. He talks about his coming back to faith in Christ. I'm sharing this with you because I found what Peter wrote about his experience of coming back to God to be very interesting, and it was sort of unusual. God did it in my mind, it's sort of an unusual way. It didn't happen in one moment for Peter. It was sort of more of a process for him. It happened over time. But there was an event, and Peter writes about this in the book. There was this event that was very pivotal for him. He was in an art museum in a place called Beaune, France, and he encountered a painting. The title of the painting is The Last Judgment. It's by an artist named Roger van der Weyden. And initially, Peter writes that he scoffed at the painting. When he encountered it in this museum, he was like, for crying out loud, more of this religious stuff. That was his thought. He was scoffing at it. But then something happened. He says that basically this painting, I'm paraphrasing, but this painting sort of gripped him. And in fact, he says at one point he was basically gaping. This is his words in the book, gaping at this painting. His mouth was like hanging open, looking at this painting, just standing in this museum. There's more to the story, but Peter says that one of the things that happened as he looked at this painting, again, it's called The Last Judgment, is this. I'm quoting from his book. He says this is what happened, quote, "I had absolutely no doubt that I was among the damned, if there were any damned." End of I've been a pastor for a long time. I was raised in the church, been in the church basically my whole life. And so I'm sure this is not the first time I'm positive it's not the first time it ever happened. But for me, reading Peter's book, this was the first time that I recall someone testifying that, like a painting, looking at basically like just looking at this work of art, that was something that God used powerfully to help in this process of bringing a person back to him. Very cool. Hey, God can use, he's God. He can use whatever he needs to use to draw people back to him.